Y'all didn't wait for me to get in that picture? Okay, I see how it is. I love this poll. Okay, I had to get your attention. And I know I tried this at the beginning, but this is very important, so I'm going to do it again. I want all of my warriors that I have placed in the audience to get your people together. Look around, everybody on mute. Not bad, because who I'm introducing next to the stage is you know who's coming, an internationally acclaimed author, poet, comedian, public speaker. I admit that I maybe stalk this person a little bit on social media and repost every single thing that they say. Please welcome to the stage with your attention that must be paid, Alok!
Thanks so much, Out and Equal, for having me. From coast to coast, we are being squeezed by a corset of violence, held together with the stories we use as strings to mold the shape of this country. Stories like, this is the land of the free. Stories like, there are only two genders. Stories like, inevitable, individualism, separation, fictions we have more faith in than reality, ghost stories told around a campfire, except this time the whole world is burning as we watch and whisper them to each other. The time has come for us to stop telling ghost stories and to start telling life stories, human stories. These are called poems. The writer Philip Pullman once said, poetry is not a fancy way of giving you information. It's an incantation. It is actually a magical spell. It changes things. It changes you. I come to you in the midst of the fires of hate with the sincere belief that we can be forged into something more beautiful on the other side. That doesn't make me an optimist. It makes me a poet. And to be a poet is to resurrect dead things, like hope. To be a poet is to be an ambassador for humanity and a society with an allergic reaction to itself. To be a poet is to notice the quiet magic that sustains life, is to tune each word to the hum of it, find majesty and magnificence in the muck. Poetry is not merely a genre of literature. It is a mode of living, something we can all do if we allow ourselves to be beautiful. So won't you please allow yourself to be beautiful tonight? I can't think of a more fitting place than Disney World and a more fitting crowd than this one to return to the power of magic. I know that with all the litany of laws against our community, many are seeking the promises and proclamations of policymakers, clear-cut strategies and surefire interventions. It might seem preposterous to bring up magic in a moment like this, but perhaps that's precisely why we need it. Silly solutions to serious problems. Another way in, a different frequency, a song that only love can hear. Thinking is the most flimsy function of the brain. Most decisions are made from a different place, the brain's downstairs, the limbic region, the amygdala, the brainstem. These are the epicenters of strong emotions like anger and fear, the main instigators of our behavior. How ironic that we've come to call these regions the primitive and reptilian parts of the brain, when they are perhaps the most modern and human. The, yeah. The poet David White put it best when he said that one of the qualities of being human is our reluctance to being human. There is a consistent narrative that homophobia can be reasoned with, that if we simply debunk the arguments, fact-checked the misinformation, then we will be able to convince others of the legitimacy of our lives. And certainly these efforts are necessary, but they are insufficient. Considering what we know about humans, why is our first line of defense logic, not love? Argument, not emotion. Why do we turn to the economists to understand human behavior, not the artists? And apologies in the room to the poet economists. I see you. You are valid. You will not be erased. We have to reach to a deeper place. We are dealing with humans here. We humans who pick and choose what we believe to reinforce our own sense of reality. We humans who self-sabotage just to maintain a semblance of control with a future that we can predict. We humans who use strangers as surrogates for our unprocessed grief. Poetry is another mode of engagement that embraces contradiction as the constitutive human condition. In other words, the revolution will be counterintuitive and silly and naive and all the other words we use to shroud magic and shame. What poetry encourages us to do is to revisit all the places we observe logical inconsistency and ask, how might this be about love? What if instead of calling people ignorant, we understood that people made decisions based off of the emotional information that they've been shown? One of the most human things we do is seek love in the wrong places. It's that childhood book, Are You My Mother? Except now we're looking for her in pop divas, politicians, ideologies, because ideas don't let us down like people do. This is what we've done as an LGBTQ movement. We have sought acceptance from the world before blooming it in our own intimate garden first. The paradigm is broken, not us. When we began with the premise that LGBTQ plus people have something to prove, that we must argue for the legitimacy of our existence, we have already lost. Our existence is not up for debate. We have always been, and we belong to always. Our lives are not opinions. We are human. This is not an aspiration. This is an absolute. The time has come for us to transition from a model of pathology to a model of poetry. Instead of convincing people why we deserve freedom, what if we simply lived it? Freedom. And what if we understood freedom not just as staying alive, but feeling alive? What if we aren't being targeted because we are deficient, but because we are delightful? Not being punished because we lack, but because we love? What if we didn't seek power because we knew we already had it here? That the true power is love, that the true currency is connection. We've come to conflate freedom with equality, but these are distinct ambitions. James Baldwin teaches us that liberation is possible, but it is also painful because it requires a complete overhaul of our identity. Truly recognizing our power will be painful because it requires us to rewrite the stories we have come to know ourselves through. That love is about our doing, not our being. That vulnerability, not vengefulness, is how we win. The way that we have come to see ourselves is through the anxieties and insecurities of a straight cis society, through people-pleasing, fawning, self-deprecating, self-deleting, self-betraying, groveling, minimizing, and these behaviors have become so learned, so precise by us, that they've come to resemble our very personalities. I'm here to remind you that they are not, because what we are is beautiful. To entertain the idea of our abundance may feel like an affront to everything we have been. To recognize and lead from our beauty, our dignity, our wonder, and our wisdom seems far-fetched and sometimes ridiculous. I think about this when so many cis gay men tell me that I'm an embarrassment to this community, that people like me are just taking it too far, just looking ridiculous, seeking attention. The irony of them seeking my attention to tell me that I am in fact seeking attention aside, I see them in me. I see them in my own doubts and fears. That fear that runs on loop in my mind that no matter what I say, you won't listen to me because of what I look like to you. Too colorful, too flamboyant to be taken seriously. That my silly and very pretty words will not be enough to rewrite the faith that you have in farce and the doubt that you have in dreaming. But then I remember I was born free. This baggage, it doesn't come from me. It's this society. It's other embarrassed and ashamed humans who couldn't accept their own image in the mirror and played the most elaborate game of hot potato, outsourcing the shame onto me. I remember that I get to be beautiful, which is another way of saying I get to be me. And so I respond to them who are also another version of me, that I love you, and I'm sorry that someone made you believe that your worthiness was linked to your appearance. It is not. You get to be the fullest version of you, and I get to be the ripest version of me, and that's what makes us beautiful, our difference. We have an antagonistic relationship with our own assertion. We maintain a perverse attachment to our own internalized homophobia and transphobia because it's always been the most consistent and accessible way that we know ourselves. When presented with an opportunity to leave it, we often choose to stay. When I first came out as gay at 17 to my mother, I told her, I'm just normal. I'm not like those gay people. The flamboyant ones, the obnoxious ones. Yikes. I genuinely believed that I could never be loved for being visibly queer, for being different, for being me. I felt like I had to overcompensate, do and be something else to be redeemable and worthy of love. As queer people, our first families and communities have us mistake our contortion as our natural posture, our self-disappearance as our mandate on earth, our trauma coping mechanisms as our truth. I saw queerness as something that would sully me, and silly me, I found out it enriched my life. Thank God I'm queer. I said, thank God I'm trans. I said, thank God I'm gender nonconforming. I said, thank God I'm free. There is a magic to this, being able to walk on this earth and know that it's my feet touching the ground. Being able to laugh and knowing that it is my laugh. And I didn't know that this was possible. For so long, my magic was shrouded in shame. I was told that if I expressed myself, I would lose everyone and everything around me. No one told me that it would clear space for the people I was needing to meet all along. Hint, you. Because it is here, alongside you, that I've learned that heaven is possible, here on earth now, that I don't have to wait for it, that we can make it here right now when we find each other. What would a self-loving queer movement look like? One that began from the premise of our abundance, not the presumption of our apology. What would a queer movement that shifted the onus away from our bodies and appearances towards placing the responsibility solidly on our coercive culture look like? The pathology model operates in an economy of shame. The poetry model is rooted in love. If we want to win, no, if we want to live, we must return to love. In a time when so many people are hunkering over electoral maps, I find myself investigating a different kind of geography, that intimate journey from the heart to the mouth, what people say out loud and what they believe, who people are and who they pretend to be. And what I'm finding along the way is a different vocabulary to anatomize the aggression. What I'm finding is our magic. And I just wanted to say tonight, I believe that queer people are magical. Did you hear that, Disney? I believe that we are not supposed to be here, and yet we are. And I feel truly charmed and so lucky to be a part of this ragtag community, even with all of our unread emails, family baggage, undiagnosed irritable bowel syndrome. I still love us. Despite centuries of attempted eradication, we somehow found a way back to one another. And in finding each other, we remember that we are possible and powerful. The poet Ocean Vuong reminds us that nobody survives by accident. Survival is a creative act, and I'd like to add, it's also a magical one. Creativity is our magic, and each and every one of us in this room is a testament to that fact. The myriad ways that we shapeshifted to survive small towns, somehow conjured fully fleshed out lives when we weren't sure we would even make it past our teens, alchemized our heartbreak into humor, our grief into glamour, gave birth to ourselves over and over again. You see, I grew up in a state much like this one called Texas. You might have heard of her. And I didn't know that non-binary people like me were possible. Sometimes in middle school, I'd go out for walks in the middle of the night to the closest field nearby and shout out, "I'm gay," to the sky, just because I needed someone to tell. Let's call it the first poem I ever wrote, because it was the first time I was being honest with myself. And the stars, they were available on demand, like an answering machine that always had the right answer, beauty. And it was a lesson that I learned so young and so tender, that amidst all the pain, there has always been beauty alongside it. And that awareness saved my life. That beauty, like the ground beneath me, was here for me to anchor, even when it felt like every inch of me wanted to evaporate into the ether. Noctilucent clouds are extremely rare, high clouds seen in the night sky. They only become visible about the same time as bright stars do. And so too was I. And so too are we. In one narrative, I was deeply closeted and self-hating. And the other, I was dynamic, adaptive, and in constant metamorphosis, no matter how gradual. My first community was the stars, and they prepared me for you. What happens when queer people remember our magic? When we fight because we genuinely believe in our magnificence, not merely our misery? What happens is we create a movement that isn't defined by what we're not, but rather by who we are. And what we are is love. And I just wanted to say tonight that I love you, all parts of you, the dysphoric parts, the anxious parts, the scared parts, the insecure parts, the self-hating parts, because every artery, every limb, every bone, every dream, every wit, every joke makes you you. And I'm so sorry that you've been punished for your magic, made to feel like this world would be better off without you. I, for one, feel so lucky and blessed to be able to share this life with you. And I need you here. You're you, not theirs. Your breath, your life is the most beautiful love poem I have ever heard. Thank you so much.